Part 213. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2125. Zhao Liaolang sat cross-legged on the chair, too lazy to put on his shoes. Marun and the others are not in the museum, and they don't like to play with us, so they didn't call them. We'll eat it ourselves. Those few were the prince's confidants. They said that they came to the Chongguan Museum to accompany the reading. In fact, they came to help the prince. They only came when the prince really came to study, and they usually worked in the front of the Zhan Shifu. So they say they are classmates, but they are actually brothers. Yin Or, who was not familiar with them either, nodded and looked at the servant. The maid went out to open the door, and the little maid and the maids who were serving outside brought the pot in and placed it in the middle of the table. In the middle of the table is a charcoal stove. The maids took out the ingredients prepared in the food box one by one and put them away one by one. After a while, a table was piled up, and the extra ones could only be placed on the wooden shelves next to them. Man Bao looked excited and said to Yin He, "You are so generous." Yin Or couldn't help but be happy. "Eat more if you like." After looking at it, Bai Shan felt that it was almost the same. He turned his head and said to the waiter, "In a while, you go out and hide the courtyard door. Everyone's movements will be quieter. Don't attract the gentlemen in front and the adults of Zhan Shifu." Everyone expressed their understanding and sat down very happily. Zhao Liaolang regretted, "It's just that there is no wine." Lu Yu immediately said, "I have it, you wait a minute." So he turned around and ran back to his house, and after a while, he brought a small jar and opened a mouth for them to smell. Zhao Liaolang and others who knew wine were amazed, while Bai Shan and others who didn't know wine sat quietly and watched them marvel. "Okay, how did you steal this thing into the palace?" "What came into the palace? This is the palace," he said. "It's not easy to get things from outside the palace to the palace, but isn't it easy to buy things from the palace? As long as you have money, you can do anything." "Can buy?" he said. "I only have this jar. I originally wanted to drink it secretly. Since today is Yin Or's happy event, I will take it out to celebrate." Yin Or, who also doesn't understand wine, "Thank you." Anyway, everyone happily opened the wine. Yin probably couldn't drink, but Man Bao and the others didn't like to drink, so they filled the bowl with soup and congratulated him directly with soup instead of wine. Lu Huan was both envious and puzzled. "The western regions are so far away. I heard that the desolation is so desolate that you can't see people for 3 or 5 days, so why did you even go?" Yin probably got what he wanted, and it was when he was happy, so he talked more. "It's rare to come to the world for a visit. You can go out and see these customs, not to mention that you can't see people in 3 or 5 days, just 3 to 5 months. It's nothing if it's not crowded." Man Bao almost vomited the soup. She said, "That's not good. If we don't see people for 3 or 5 months, we must go to a place where people can't live." Lu Huan was curious. "What is a place where people can't live?" "It's a place that people can't go to," Bai Shan said. "There are places where no one has ever been, but there are places where no one is because people can't reach it. It's very dangerous, and there may be beasts we haven't seen before. The weather makes it difficult to even breathe, and that's where people can't get to." Lu Huan couldn't understand. "Is there any place in this world where I can't breathe?" Bai Shan thought about what was written in the book, and said, "It's too cold to be at a high place." Even Zhao Liaolang couldn't help but become curious. "Will you go to such a place this time?" Bai Shan shook his head. "It's more dangerous to cross grasslands and deserts, but Honglu Temple has a guide, so it shouldn't be a big problem." Zhao Liaolang poured another glass of wine, raised his glass and said with a smile, "Come on, we wish you victory." Bai Shan also picked up the bowl, smiled slightly, and touched him. Everyone happily ate and drank. Even if she was as stingy as Lu Yu, she couldn't help but say to her classmates, It's not that Zhou Mangwen Er has risen so fast. We can't match her ability to fight for her life. Are you praising her or mocking her? I'm telling the truth, don't think of me so badly, but that's what people like Zhou Man and Bai Shan need to do. People like us have opportunities to make achievements and make careers, so there's no need to spend so much effort. Zhao Liaolang on the side heard it, couldn't help rolling his eyes, and then quietly distanced himself from Lu Yu. When Huomu was out of the palace, he and Bai Erlang mingled together, and when he mentioned this, he said, although it's easier for people like us to get ahead than your cousins, why don't you have to worry about it? Look at Tang's Haihe and Yang Changbo, not only in the capital, but also the first in the family, they are so scheming to make achievements, let alone us. Bai Erlang didn't like Lu Yu either, never mind, I'm not familiar with him anyway. Let's talk. Glance at Zhao Liaolang, his eyes are self-evident. Lu Yu is Zhao Liaolang's sidekick, and has been running behind his ass since he entered Chongguan Museum. Zhao Liaolang was a little depressed, how did he know he was like that, and he didn't look so stingy before. Speaking of being stingy, he remembered, you're not in the capital, so I will continue to owe you the money I owe you. Bai Erlang, you can't afford to pay it back now. Bai Erlang couldn't help but complain, why do you spend so much money? If I don't follow the family members for a month, no one will live. 20 taels of silver are sky high. Your monthly silver is 20 taels, right? Zhao Liaolang still has an opinion, 2 taels of silver, my sisters in my family have more than this money. I'm still a big man, and I can't socialize every month? Zhao Liaolang sighed, that's why people outside always find us so glamorous, how do they know our difficulties? Not to mention Bai Erlang, Bai Shan, and Man Bao, who were burying their heads in sorting out books, both took the time to curl their lips. People outside are still worrying about 3 meals a day, of course they can't understand your 2 taels of wine and a pot of wine and 10 taels of silver. A pot of wine is tough. They can't understand, but you can. Zhao Liaolang immediately gave up Bai Erlang and said to the two of them, we have been classmates for many years, and everyone should know what happened to them. You can see that we are children of honor and wealth. But you feel your conscience and say, as far as pocket money is concerned, do I have as much as you? The 3 of them were all questioned. Zhao Liaolang added, Zhou Man will not talk about it, you have already been sealed, you have a salary, and a job field, just compare me and Bai Shan Bai Er, who are both students of Chongguan Museum and the Prince's Companion, what is the difference between the money we can control? Zhao Liaolang made a big circle and said, it's so much worse. Bai Shan thought about something, he said, why did he not go anywhere when he was out of the palace, he just rode behind their buttocks and came to their house as a guest. Bai Shan raised his chin and motioned for him to continue. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2126. Zhao Liaolang didn't realize it, and continued with a sad face, what income do I have every month besides the monthly silver? You and Bai Er have Zhuangzi and business. Bai Shan immediately stopped his words, it's not hard to be a Zhuangzi, even if Zhao Qiagong doesn't want to give it to you, I don't believe that MR's sister-in-law doesn't have it. In the end, you're still lazy, and you're not willing to manage it yourself. He said, and with the way you spend, let alone as Zhuangzi, even 10 or 8 are not enough for you. Bai Shan would never have spoken to Zhao Liaolang before. After all, it's hard to talk deeply, but in the past 2 years, the two have been in contact with each other more, and the relationship has deepened a lot, so Bai Shan said, there should also be a way to have fun. By the way, you. Well, I've listened to my father and the others talking enough at home, but I didn't expect you to be younger than me, but older than me. Bai Shan shook his head and said, this is not the old school, and I won't stop you from having fun. It's rare in this world. Since you've come to this world, You naturally have to live happily. I thought you were going to say like my father that life should be ups and downs, and make achievements. Bai Shan said, why do you want to find bitterness for Neng Tian? He said, what is ups and downs, it's all fake. The reason why people are willing to suffer is for the sweetness after bitterness. Because without suffering, there is no sweetness, so you have to suffer. If you can always have sugar to eat, who will deliberately discard the sugar to eat bran? Zhao Liaolang froze for a while, then gave a thumbs up and said, good brother, you are still transparent. I think my father is even worse. Man Bao rolled his eyes and said, it's as if Zhao Qiuagong didn't know that. His old man has traveled more salt than we have eaten, doesn't he know? She said, he knows, either he didn't explain it, or you didn't understand. By Erlangle, it must be the latter. Go away, Zhao Liaolang said, why didn't I understand, I always understood. By Shandao, then you say, what do you understand? Zhao Liaolang opened his mouth and was speechless for a while. Bai Erlang immediately called out, look, you still don't understand, do you? Man Bao followed and laughed for a while, and then said to him sternly, I thought, even if I don't make meritorious deeds and become a prince, and only have fun all my life, I should be worthy of the heaven and earth, my parents and my future family talents. It is good. She pointed to Bai Shan and said, even if I don't become a doctor or an official in the court, in the future, I will also support my parents, support myself, take care of my husband, and raise children. You want to see the water you want, listen to your favorite music, and even dance your own happy dance. This is fun, and you have to borrow money to go to the Spring Breeze building after spending a day like you, how boring. When you are entertaining actors and dancers, you have to worry about how to repay the debt. What kind of joy is this? Zhao Liaolang wanted to say that he was not worried, he usually only worries later when he thinks about it. But he opened his mouth and found that the difference between the two was not that big, so he closed his mouth. Man Bao waved his hand and said with bright eyes, the real happiness is that when I go to the Spring Breeze building to watch the performers sing, I can still bring my wife and children with me. If my father likes it, give him an actor, and if my mother likes it, I will give her an entertainer. Lele alone is not as good as everyone's Lele, and this is called Lele. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang. Zhao Liaolang looked at Zhou Man for a long time and was speechless, and it took him a long time to find his own voice, you. His voice was a little hoarse, he cleared his throat, looked at Bai Shan, and suddenly felt a little sympathetic to him, inexplicably a little envious, and he was so complicated that he didn't know where to start. Bai Shan wiped his face, stretched out his hand and pushed his face away from him, don't say it, I understand. Man Bao lifted his eyelids and looked at the three of them, what's wrong? The three shook their heads together, nothing. Man Bao snorted, as if they agreed with her. Zhao Liaolang was hit a bit hard today, so much so that he remembered his ultimate goal after a long time, no, I'm here to talk to you about business, who wants to talk to you about this, these? Bai Erlang said thoughtfully, the meaning of life. Zhao Liaolang glanced at him, that's right. Bai Shan calmly handed the copied document to Man Bao, didn't you start it? Man Bao opened the inspection and said casually, I don't even know the meaning of life, so is it still called being alive? Hey, I think your attack is too broad, Zhao Liaolang said, even if I can't compare to you, but I am much stronger than Lu Yu and the others. Better than most people in this world, right? Those ordinary people outside. Don't even think about it, they can't even touch it. That's because they don't have your conditions, Man Bao said. They are still running around for food and clothing, what about you? And those who are running around for food and clothing can think of these things. That's the real wise man. Man Bao pointed to himself, then pointed to Bai Shan and said, we only read when we are full, and only think about these things. Stop, Zhao Liaolang reached out and interrupted her, thinking that if the three of them were to speak again, he wouldn't even want to say what he wanted to say before it got dark today. I just wanted to ask you, do you want to follow the trend when you go to the western regions this time? A wave of business, such as gems, spices, and BMWs in the western regions, whatever is valuable is anything. If you do it, count me a share. Zhao Liaolang finished speaking quickly, for fear of being interrupted again. After he finished speaking, he thought about it for a while, and felt that what he said was super handsome. He said proudly, well, I am also motivated, and I don't just know how to play. Man Bao said, 1. It's too late for you to say this. Now, the people who ask me to bring things from the western regions, count how many people are in my family, how many people are in Bai Shan's family, how many people are in Bai Er's family. There are also 2 princesses, second sister Fu, Madame Tang, Madame Yang, Xiao Yuanzheng, Imperial Dr. Lu, Imperial Dr. Zheng, shopkeeper Zheng Da. Man Bao broke a finger and Zhao Liaolang opened his mouth a little wider. After a while, he closed it when he couldn't open it. Second, we have a lot of luggage and the money is very heavy. Even if it is changed to gold, it is inconvenient to take it. If it is accidentally robbed, then it will be yours and mine. Zhao Liaolang immediately said, count me. Man Bao gave him an admiring look, just say this to you, I'll make some room for you. Zhao Liaolang, who had already prepared a lot of words in his stomach, choked, so simple? Man Bao turned his head and said to Bai Shan, when the time comes, I will exchange gold for gems and spices. It shouldn't take up much space. Bai Shan nodded with a smile. Zhao Liaolang held his breath in his chest and said after a while, anyway, let me persuade me before agreeing. My mother had kidney stones in the early hours of the morning, so she stayed in the hospital all day today. I may be a little busy these 2 days, so the update time and number of words are uncertain, please forgive me. The next chapter is around 10 o'clock at night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2127. Specialties of the Western regions, gems, spices, and horses. All of them are very expensive. With the money Zhao Liaolang sent, you can think about the gems and spices and buy a small amount to bring back. Horses don't need to think about it. Zhao Liaolang closed the box containing the gold and pushed it to the 3 of them, this is my entire net worth. The 3 of Bai Shan just listened to it. Who believed that he only had this amount of wealth? Bai Shan ordered the money, wrote him a note, and with a wave of his hand, asked Daji to carry the box to the warehouse and put it away. Zhao Liaolang couldn't help but ask, are many people asking you to bring things from the western regions? Bai Shan responded lazily, yeah, so don't hold out your hopes too much, thinking about waiting for the gems and spices to come back and make a lot of money. Zhao Liaolang sighed, sure enough, other people can think of any money-making ideas that I can think of. He got up, waved his hand and said, okay, you guys are busy, I'll go home first. Bai Erlang was surprised, aren't you going to play today? Tomorrow can be a holiday. Zhao Liaolang said with a deep face, I promised madam that I will reform my face and earnestly earn money to support my family in the future. Although they thought it was impossible, Bai Shan and the others still took the time to praise him. What if he really changed his mind when he was encouraged? Zhao Liaolang was very envious of the 3, no, he was envious of Bai Shan and Bai Erlang. He asked, you don't have to go to the palace to go to school tomorrow, right? Bai Shan nodded. Zhao Liaolang looked envious, it's so good. I don't know when he will be able to skip school. He was full of tears when he mentioned this. Zhao Liaolang wiped his face intentionally. Originally, he was studying well in Shui, and he had planned to study for another year or two before Inian went to work. As a result, the prince chose to study with him, and he entered the Chongguan Museum again. Bai Shan and Bai Er, who entered the Kuaza school later than him, both came out of the Chongguan Museum, but he still has to continue to study in it. The plan is for Inian next year, but I don't know if it will work. Zhao Liaolang remembered something, and quickly asked the two of them, "Are you closing your studies, or are you resigning?" Did Kong Jiju agree so easily? Bai Shan said, "It doesn't count, we are asking for a long vacation. Because it is the prince's companion reading, it is not easy to resign. As for the graduation, at present only Yi Xiang is the one who has completed the graduation. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang, as long as they don't work for a day, they are still students of Chongguan Museum. It is yin or the same. Although he was knighted, and the emperor personally ordered him to accompany him to the western regions, he still went there as a student of Kongwengan, and it was also not considered a graduation. Like Bai Shan Bai Erlang, he also took a long vacation with Kong Jiju. Because they had planned a trip to the western regions for a long time, and the experiment of the vaccination method was also made public in the court, so Kong Jiju did not block it, and their leave request was approved as soon as they were handed in. He also tenderly presented them to the emperor. The emperor immediately approved. So this time Bai Shan and the others don't need to enter the palace to study again after they leave the palace, but the palace still has to enter twice. I have to move things, and I have to say goodbye to the emperor and prince. The emperor may not necessarily see them, but the prince should. Most of the things in the palace were purchased after they entered the palace, and there was no need to bring out the clothes, shoes, and socks, but they had to take out the notes, books, and some ornaments they had obtained after entering the palace. I lived in it for 3 years, and there are a lot of scattered things. Zhao Liaolang asked, "Has the Qin Tianjian set a departure time?" Man Bao said, "I reported 3 times, and I sent them to Honglu Temple and Tai Hospital. They have to make up their minds, but I guess it should be the 7th day of the 4th lunar month." Zhao Liaolang calculated the time, "That's not much time." Man Bao said, "It's been a long time. I can still go back and sweep the graves of my grandfather and grandmother." Yes, Man Bao has decided to go to Shangzhou. On Thursday, Lang sold Man Bao's fields in Shangzhou, but he still kept the house. Not only did he keep it, he also brought someone to arrange it. In the future, they can stop there when they go home, or when they pass through Shangzhou in the capital. This time Man Bao went to Shangzhou with not many people. Only Zhou Dalin accompanied her. The 2 brothers and sisters were very solemn for Xia Yan and his wife to do Qingming for the first time. During the Qingming festival this year, Man Bao had just returned to Beijing and was busy with vaccinations, so he did not return to Shangzhou for sacrifice. Now she is going to go far, and she has to go back to worship once. The Xia clan saw Zhou Man personally come back to make up for Qingming, and they valued Xia Yan a little more, not as neglected as before. The court was also very considerate, and specially gave them a long vacation, so Man Bao got up early and returned early. When Man Bao returned to the capital, it was only the 5th day of the 5th day, and there were still 2 days before the trip. The old Zhutu brought Man Bao to the Suandu temple to burn incense to the ancestors of his hometown, and asked them to bless Man Bao with a safe journey. It is rare to pay generously to buy a peace talisman for everyone. Man Bao and Bai Shan are the most expensive, worth 20 cents. Man Bao put the safety talisman in her purse and hung it on her waist, indicating that she would definitely keep it and never drop it. Then early in the morning on the 7th day of the 1st lunar month, the old Zhutu family reluctantly sent their group to the city gate. There were quite a lot of people who came to see them off, and they stretched from the Shili Long Pavilion to the Daguan Road, blocking half of the road. No matter how much sadness and worry old Zhutu and Jianxi had, they dissipated when they saw the endless chariots and horses seeing them off, leaving only consternation and a little at a loss. Manbao herself did not expect so many people to see them off. She stared at them for a long time, although she knew everyone, but they are usually so familiar, so good. She couldn't help looking at Bai Shan. Bai Shan also looked at her in shock. He was also shocked. In the end, the two of them looked at each other silently for a while and then said, "Thank you together. Otherwise, thank the past one by one, and then reminisce, there is no need to set off today." The people who came to see them off seemed to know it, so everyone didn't rush forward to say goodbye to them. Basically, one person represented some of them. For example, Zhao Liaolang led a group of students from Kongwengan to the front and said, "Originally, we were only tentatively mentioning to His Highness, but I didn't expect His Highness to actually let us go out of the palace to see you off. Alas, I won't do it now. Not anymore." Ji Hao and other classmates from Qiaozijian also came to see them off, but when confronted, Ji Hao didn't know what to say for a while, so he could only say, "Take care all the way." Bai Shan smiled and thanked him. Wei Chen was very emotional. "When you entered the Qiaozijian, we thought that one day we would be classmates in the Qiaozijian again. As a result, we entered the Qiaozijian, and you went to Chongguan Hall again. You didn't take the exam for the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Personnel this year. I was thinking that we might be able to do half of the same department next year, but you all went on a study tour." Wei Chen said, "I don't know if we are still there when you come back." Beijing. Bai Shan, you study 2 more years. Wei Chen couldn't help but punch him, and several people looked at each other and laughed. "See you tomorrow." Xiaoxian asked for leave, "So I'll make it up after I've been busy for a while, covering my face. I'm very embarrassed." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2128. Mrsu was holding Manbao's hand and said, "As soon as you leave, we don't know who to see a doctor. Alas, I was thinking about so many people in the Thai hospital. Why should I let you go for such a thing?" But Prince the concubine said that the medical skills in the Imperial Hospital are comparable to your age, and you can travel far away at a young age but do not have medical skills like yours, so you are the most suitable. You brought this up again, so I ordered you to go. It's just pity for us. It's hard to have a caring doctor. It's been a few years since he disappeared. Manbao recommended his apprentice Lu Sunyang. She has learned most of my skills. You can just find her. If there is something she can't solve, she can also ask Imperial Physician Lu. Madame Su sighed, and they could only turn to Dr. Lu for help, but how could the apprentice compare to the master? If nothing else, can anyone have a medical technique such as open abdomen extraction? Fu Ers and Madame Tang stood together. She handed a large package to Manbao, and said, "This is the cloak I made for you by myself. It is made of wolf skin, and it is well tanned, mainly for warmth. I heard that it is very cold in the western regions, and it snows in August and September every year. If you bring it, you may be able to use it." Manbao happily agreed. Mrs. Tang gave Manbao all kinds of food, among which candied fruit is the most. "The journey is boring, you should eat more." Manbao looked at her face carefully and said, "Aren't you sitting on a double confinement? Why did you come out now?" Mrs. Tang said, "Listen to what you mean. I'm afraid I won't be back until 3 or 2 years. I think I don't know when I'll see you again. Maybe we won't be in the capital when you return to Beijing, so it's still a good idea. Come and see each other quickly, and see one side less." Manbao, "No, you can ask someone to tell me. It's okay for me to go to your house and see you first. Come on, I'm not going to die, am I just bored at home and want to come out to relax?" Madame Tang motioned her to look at herself. "Look at me, these things on my head, like someone who can catch cold or get tired." That is, Madame Tang wore the most clothes among so many people who came today. Manbao laughed, and then asked about the status of the two children. The last time she visited them was 8 days ago. It's the same every day. Don't tell me. The prescription prescribed by Imperial Physician Lu is very effective. After the nurse has eaten it, she will feed the child, and the child will sleep better at night, and finally won't wake up from time to time. They eat a lot and sleep well. Well, I've finally gained some weight now, and it looks like a full-term child. Manbao nodded and warned, don't make up too much. They have a weak foundation. They want to take care of them slowly. I told Dr. Lu that he should visit them every 10 days. Ms. Tang knew that as her father-in-law, it was not difficult to invite Imperial Physician Lu, but it was not easy to ask Imperial Physician Lu to come every 10 days. Imperial Physician Lu was willing to come to see Zhou Man's face. She smiled and said, you have to come back early, don't wait for them to call your aunt and haven't come back yet. Manbao said that he would try his best to come back sooner. After saying goodbye to them, Manbao went to see colleagues at Tai Hospital. Xiao Yuan was waiting with Imperial Physician Lu and others, not only to see them off, but also to bring them Zhuangxing wine. Speaking of which, this is the first time that the imperial doctor of our imperial hospital has made such an external business. No matter what the result is, the imperial physician Zhou has worked hard. Come, let's wait for this cup of honor. Manbao quickly took it. Xiao Yuanzheng, don't forget about the imperial physician's office, all 3 of my apprentices are handed over to you. Most of the emotions that Xiao Yuan was brewing were dissipated, and he responded angrily, you have already made the handover clearly, can I still cheat the Tai Hospital and the imperial physician's office? Zheng Gu, Zheng Xiao and Sun Yang are not bad in medical skills and morals. You just go with peace of mind. The 3 Zheng Gu, who were waiting on the side, immediately saluted and said that they would definitely work hard and never fail to live up to master's expectations and so on. The shopkeeper Zheng De, who was standing beside him, was very pleased and felt that his son was smart enough. After seeing them all, Manbao breathed a sigh of relief and called the 3 apprentices aside to say, learning is endless, even if I'm not here, you must study medicine hard. She paused and then said, don't think that you have graduated from the imperial physician's office, it is very convenient to be able to sit in the hall. You have seen very few patients, and there are many diseases that you have never seen before, and the same disease is used by different patients. Medicines are also different, let alone different treatments. She said to Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao, you haven't left the capital yet, look at how Xiao Yuanzheng treats diseases, and when you go out to practice, you should also communicate more with the local doctors, don't make excuses because others' medical skills are not as good as yours. Neglecting others, they have seen no less patients than you. Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao took notes seriously. Both of them were determined to go to the local imperial physician's office for training, while Lu Sunyang stayed in the Beijing imperial physician office to take over Zhou Man's acupuncture class, and at the same time help the imperial physician. However, Zhou Man had already recommended it to Xiao Yuanzheng before he left. There should still be a female imperial doctor in the imperial hospital. The title of medical assistant is too small. Convenient. Although Xiao Yuanzheng did not agree, his tone was relaxed. Manbao estimated that as long as she did not make mistakes within a certain period of time, she could be promoted logically. Manbao said the same to Lu Sunyang, and whispered to her, don't feel embarrassed, if there is a disease you don't understand, you can pester Lu Tai to ask him, he is your grandfather, and whether you teach men or women, it is also a kiss. Granddaughter, and you are still colleagues, you should teach each other. Lu Sunyang, really? Manbao nodded affirmatively, yes. She said, you just ask for advice, and I'll exchange some medical skills with him when I come back. Your grandfather is very insightful on women's diseases and children's diseases. Look at Dr. Tao, your grandfather is even better than him. Awesome, with such an awesome relative, it would be a waste if you didn't ask for advice. Man Bao said, you have to be thick-skinned to learn things, he is not a villain, just learn with a thick-skinned face. Lu Sunyang, if you are a villain, do you have to be thin-skinned? Man Bao said sternly, we must respect and love the wicked, and do not deliberately act evil with them, but we must keep them away and not get close to them. So being cheeky means being close. That's right, in Joe Man's view, being cheeky means being close. You have the cheek to ask people for advice, come and go, you come and I go, don't you have a deep friendship? That is close. After Man Bao finished his instructions, he ran back to his family. Seeing that she was so busy, old Zhou Tiou swallowed many words. Anyway, he said the words of advice for several days, and it was repeated. He gave her the purse that he had been holding in his hand, this is given to you by Dad. Take it to buy delicious food on the road, don't treat yourself badly, you know. Man Bao pinched and pinched a hard irregular lump, startled, her father actually had money. This Monday, the hospital was too busy, so I had to queue up. The update is a little late. The next chapter is around 10 o'clock. In the last chapter, I modified some time issues, you can look back. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2129. She immediately turned to look at her mother. Qian looked at her tenderly, reached out and touched her head and said, just take what your father gave you, you can go at ease, and leave the family affairs to your brothers. Don't worry if your dad is watching it himself. Man Bao smiled and said, I'm not worried. She looked at Zhou Lizhong, who was on the side, and urged, the seeds I give you should be planted well, and the data of the experimental field should be memorized. If you lose, you will lose. Don't feel bad. Zhou Li replied, you can rest assured, little ant. This year, we will free up 5 acres from the working field to use as a test field, so we won't fool the past. Listening to their endless chattering, Shu Youlang couldn't help but say, let's go, the sun is about to hit the top of your head. Xiao Qian was also afraid that they would not be able to catch up with the hostel, so he quickly pulled Man Bao and said, let's go, and let someone write a letter to the house when you get there. Sister-in-law, that place is far away. It will take 2 or 3 months for the light letter to be sent back. If you really arrive at the place, you might as well find a way to get back by yourself. Maybe it will be faster than sending the letter. Xiao Qian couldn't help but mutter, this is too far. Man Bao was surrounded by the crowd and got into the car. He lifted the curtain and said to Zhou Lijun, I can't attend your wedding. I'll make up a gift for you later. Zhou Lijun nodded, but was talking to Zhou Liru behind Man Bao, take care of my aunt. Zhou Liru nodded with excitement on his face, second sister, don't worry. Bai Shan and Bai Erlang also got into the carriage and said goodbye to everyone. When the 6 sisters of the Yin family saw it, they couldn't help crying while holding Yin Or's hand. Yin Or did not smoke after several times, so he might as well turn his head to look at his father. Yin Li said with a sullen face, okay, let him get in the car. The Yin sisters were reluctant to part, but they had to let go under their father's gaze, and could only look at Yin or get into the car with tears in their eyes. The convoy finally set off, everyone in the convoy breathed a sigh of relief, and when the carriage was far away, Man Bao lifted the curtain and looked back, making sure that he couldn't see the person who was seeing off, and immediately opened the curtain and went out, Daji, I ride a horse. Bai Shan shouted in another car, I want to. Bai Erlang, together, together. So the 3 of them changed their horses, and after a while they ran to the front of Yin Or's car. Yin Or, do you want to learn to ride a horse? Yin He lifted the curtain of the car and glanced at the dust blowing in the wind, then shook his head and refused, you can ride, I'll just watch it. Man Bao, then let's go to the front first, and dash. Yin Or smiled and lowered the curtain, hugged the stove in his arms, and closed his eyes with his hands in his sleeves. Chang Shao waited in the car and started to make tea with the stove. "Master, can Master Lu come out?" "Yin," he said, "he didn't come to see him off this morning, he should have run out." Man Bao and the others ran for a while, and when they felt in a good mood, they got off the horse and got out of the carriage. The three of them sat in a car. They were also discussing, did Lu Huan escape? Bai Shan said, "I saw him this morning, and I squeezed our eyes and ran away. I don't know if he ran out." Man Bao said, "There are so many people, they have no intentions, they must have run away. I don't know if the Lu family will come after them. After all, they are going to the western regions. Moreover, they didn't hurry this time, they walked slowly, and stopped to rest when they met the inn." Bai Shan smiled and said, "I'll know in 2 days." When the convoy stopped at Yangzhou station, Lu Huan came out with a message from his servant, and laughed loudly. "I ran out." Bai Shan couldn't help laughing and said, "It's too early to say this, let's see if someone comes after you the day after tomorrow." Lu Huan shuddered and said quickly, "Can't you hide from me? With so many people in the convoy, it's not difficult to hide one of me." Bai Shan glanced at him and said, "Zhang? Are you trying to kill your family?" Yin or helped Chang Shao's hand to get out of the car and said to him, "Not only will he not hide you, I think the person who sent the letter to your home is already in your home now." Lu Huan was stunned. "What do you mean?" Bai Shandao, "It means literally, you can run away from home for half a day or a day, but you can't stay overnight, otherwise good people will be rushed into bad people. I left a letter to my family and said that at noon it was delivered to your home." Bai Shan looked up at the sun and said to him, "Well, I guess I just went out to your house now. Your grandparents should know about it soon." Lu Huan couldn't help shouting, You bad guy." Man Beiyu patted his shoulder earnestly and said, "This is all for your own good. Lu Shangshu has only 2 attitudes towards this matter: either agree with you to go, send someone to bring you additional things, and scold you by the way, or send someone to take you back and beat you up. But beating people is also important. We will take the initiative to send a letter to your grandfather and take the initiative to confess." Then Lu Shangshu's anger is only so small. Man Bao pinched a little finger, and then drew a circle. "But, I didn't leave a word, I said to see you off, but I didn't come back at night. Your grandparents searched the capital all night and couldn't find it? Finally, I guessed that you ran away with us by virtue of your own ingenuity. Is your grandfather so angry?" Lu Huan glanced at the circle she gestured, and said with a trembling, "It will only be bigger. Man Bao, we're not marching in a hurry. If he wants to arrest him, he will be arrested if you go to the ends of the earth. Do we want to know for your sake?" Lu Huan was actually persuaded by her and nodded, but after thinking about it, he felt that something was wrong. After a while, he asked, "Then why don't you persuade me to stay at home?" Man Bao said, "We persuaded us." Lu Huan, "When did you persuade?" Bai Erlang said, "Why didn't we persuade us? We all said that it is very hard to go to the western regions, you may not be able to eat white rice, you may encounter sandstorms, and you may encounter horse bandits and so on. Don't you insist on following us? Together." Lu Huan, "Is this your advice?" The 3 Bai Shan nodded together. Yin he smiled and said, "The food is ready at the inn, let's go in and eat." The 4 of them remembered that they had been standing at the door talking. Mr. Zhuang and the 2 pedestrians from Honglu Temple had already entered and sat down. Seeing Zhou Man coming in, the 2 immediately got up and saluted, and they were about to make room for them. Mr. Zhuang smiled at the 2 of them. "You 2 don't need to be polite to them, let them sit together, we will not interfere with the children's affairs." The 2 passers-by felt that this gentleman and this gentleman were also very unique. His apprentices were clearly abducting Lu Shangshu's grandson on purpose. Regardless of whether he said it, he still had the tendency to add fuel to the flames. The five-man Bao entered and saluted Mr. Zhuang before they sat down for lunch. Most of these people travel with public funds, not the kind that pay first and then reimburse, but the kind that directly stay at the inn for free and eat for free. I'll be here tonight. I won't be so busy tomorrow. I should be able to update the last chapter at noon. Good night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2130. As for the people who are not on the quota, everyone pays the money to Daji in advance according to the proportion, and Daji is responsible for paying the money. Lu Huan and Ji Yu sneaked out, and they were not on the quota, so he took out a piece of silver and gave it to Daji, but Yin Or stopped and said to him, "You and my family will be counted together, let me long life." Lu Huan, I'm so sorry. But he took the money back and put it in his wallet. He didn't have much money. It took a long time to go, so it's better to keep a little more money on him. When Zhou Liru saw it, he couldn't help but pursed his lips and smiled. The others also laughed and said, it should be, it should be. After all, he risked one more beating than they did. The food at the inn is average, but everyone is quite used to eating, and they continue their journey after a short rest after eating. Because the delay was a little longer in the morning, they had to speed up this afternoon to arrive at the lodging station at night. The group speeded up. Lu Huan stopped riding horses, and was crammed into a carriage with Yin Or, and he could talk and talk to recuperate. Man Bao and Zhou Liru also closed their eyes and rested their minds. They were not worried about matters in the capital. When they came to arrest people, they would take them away. When they came to deliver things, they happily picked up the things and received a scolding, because the consequences would be ignored. They thought about it in advance and were prepared to bear it, so they didn't panic at all. Only the stakeholder Lu Huan couldn't sit still, and Yin Or comforted him. The result will be known the day after tomorrow at the latest, and if it's fast, it will be known tomorrow. Lu Huan wanted to cry. Lu Shangshu in the capital just wanted to scold people. Mrs. Lu also opened her mouth and was speechless for a while. Seeing that the old wife was also stunned, Lu Shangshu took a deep breath, suppressed his anger and asked, "What do you mean?" Madame Lu returned to her senses and shouted, "What do you mean by me? Hurry up and find someone back." "Now what does she mean?" She said, "They have only been gone for half a day, and now they have reached Yangzhou at most. Now let someone chase them, and they will be brought back tomorrow." She paused for a while, but still couldn't hold back. "When you find someone back, hit him lightly." Lu Shangshu glared at her. "You're used to him having such courage. You still want to hold it up and put it down gently at this time?" Mrs. Lu said as a bachelor, "Then you can beat it? If you beat the child, I will see how you will explain it to your daughter-in-law." "Lu Shangshu, you were the one who didn't want them to take the child to the post." "I don't want it. Suzhou is desolate, Huaner is so young, how can I let him endure hardship?" Mrs. Lu said, "Don't you agree? If I don't keep the child, he can go to the Kuaza school. Can I go to Chongguan Museum?" Lu Shangshu knew that the quarrel was no match for her, because she was unreasonable. He simply waved his hand and did not continue the topic, but said, "Have someone to pack up for him, prepare more clothes, shoes, and socks, as well as money, bring a few more people to serve, and I will send it to him." Mrs. Lu was wrong when she heard this and asked, "What do you mean?" Lu Shangshu snorted coldly, "What do you mean? I don't beat him as you wish." He said bitterly, "Didn't he want to go to the western regions?" "I agree." "No," Mrs. Lu stood up and glared at him, "You are crazy, that is the western regions, do you know what they will meet when they go there?" Lu Shangshu said, he is following the officials of the court, and there are guards to protect him. What can he meet? He raised his hand to stop what she was about to say, restrained his anger and said seriously, "This child is ignorant. How old is he? But he can still do things like running away from home without saying a word. He should grow up too. Big, learn to think about your family." He clicked on the channel on the table. This letter is still sent by Bai Shan. He is younger than him, and he is so thoughtful. Do you see how old he is in this year or two? Mrs. Lu, he's tall. Lu Shangshu was choked, and after a while, he said with a headache, "Madam, my husband is discussing things with you seriously." Mrs. Lu is not unreasonable, she said, "I'm already seeing him. The eldest daughter of the second room of the Pei family is a very gentle and stable girl. Their family is also interesting now. It's okay to wait for the children to see each other." After that, it was decided that when he got married and became a father, after a year or two of experience, he would be stable. She said, "He is not married now, and his mentality is still like a child, so naturally he can't take this into account." Bai Shan. Isn't the son of the Bai family also engaged? Mrs. Lu intercepted his words and said, "Men, you are mature when you get engaged." Lu Shangshu didn't believe it. He snorted and said, "The few who have already married in the Chongguan Hall, let's not talk about it, just say that the Lu Lang of Zhao Qiagong's family is the father of 2 children. Are you sane?" He snorted, "It is said that the children of the poor have long been in charge of the family. If I want to see, they have been too good since they were young, and they have not experienced hardships, so they don't grow up like this. Look at Bai Shan and Zhou Man, who have suffered from deep hatred and hatred since childhood. Now one of them is famous all over the world, and he was awarded a Jinji early, the other is a world-renowned genius doctor, who can be perfect no matter what the errand is in his hands, and he even follows them by his side. That child, Bai is the same size as Huaner, and he is much more stable and sensible than him." Lu Shangshu stopped her and said, "Although his eldest brother is there to support the family, I don't need him to win glory for the family, but I always want him to be more promising. And after getting married, he will have his own small family. If he can rely on his eldest brother, will his children and grandchildren also rely on his eldest brother?" Lu Shangshu said, "He always has to do something for his wife and children. Feng Waifianzi, I am also worthy of my ancestors." Madame Lu opened her mouth and said after a while, "We're talking about going to the western regions, why did we get involved in this?" "We're just talking about the western regions," Lu Shangshu said. "Do you know who will go to the western regions this time? If you are young, Zhou Man, Bai Shan and Bai are younger than him, and they can still be ordered by the emperor to go there. Western regions, if you are weak, who in this world is not in better health than Yin or? He can go too, why can't Huaner go?" Madame Lu fell silent. "Originally, if he didn't run, we knew in advance that we would stop people and beat them. This is a trivial matter in the family. The day after the day off, people will be stuffed into the palace and let him continue to be honest with the prince." Lu Shangshu said, "But now that people have run away, not to mention the stations along the way, even the officials who followed Zhou Man are watching. If I arrest people again, it will naturally be a farce, but after the farce woolen cloth. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2131. In the future, this is just a joke in the capital, but he won't be taught a lesson, he won't tell when he grows up, and he will give people the impression of being timid and indifferent. Lu Shangshu said, "I don't expect him to make achievements anymore, and I don't want him to have no future at all." Lu Shangshu said, "It is best to let him go." He sighed, "All right, originally I felt that he wouldn't learn much while studying in the palace. I wanted him to go to Suzhou for a study tour, but now he just went to the western regions instead." Mrs. Lu said angrily, "What's the matter? His father is out in Suzhou. He goes there to experience and is still taken care of by his family, but he goes to the western regions. Exactly, let him also see how he can live his life without the support of his family outside. Seeing that his wife was still frowning, but she was not very opposed, he said, it's settled like this, you immediately ask someone to pack up, I will choose a few people for him to send, and I will chase him along the way tomorrow morning. He got up and said, I still have to write a letter and plead with your majesty. Madame Lu was startled, what? Lu Shangshu glanced at her and said, don't forget, he is still the prince's companion. It's nothing to go out of Beijing privately, but to go to the western regions privately, what is the charge? Madame Lu remembered this. Fortunately, Bai Shan left a letter. We have to deal with it a lot better. Just fill in the fake note. The prince is not a child now, nor is he when he was messing around a few years ago, so he doesn't need a companion reading very much. Without Bai Shan's few companions, he wouldn't mind Lu Huan anymore. Lu Shangshu immediately got up and went to the palace. He went to plead guilty to the emperor first. On the prince's side, he would act according to the attitude of the emperor. The emperor didn't expect this to happen to the Lu family, so he laughed out loud and laughed. After laughing, he felt that it was not good to be in front of his servants, so he hurriedly closed his voice, but his face turned a little red. When Lu Shangshu couldn't see it, he lowered his head and continued to state the sins of his grandson. Then the emperor smiled and comforted him and said, young people have the heart to make achievements and build a career. I heard that he has always been on good terms with Yin or Bai Shan and Bai Cheng, and it is normal to run after a friend when he sees a friend going to the western regions. The emperor said, who hasn't been young, I can take my family to the battlefield when I'm 14 years old, don't I have nothing? Lu Shangshu said, how can he be compared with his majesty? But his majesty is right, this young man's mind is better to be blocked, and this child is running out of his mind. I'm afraid I won't be happy if I catch him back, so I want to ask your majesty's grace to let him go to the western regions with him, and let him blow the sand, knowing that the world outside is not so easy to roam. The emperor thought of his sons and sighed, yes, they always feel that the family has treated them badly. How can they know the difficulties outside? Lu Shangshu said, let them go out and roam and you'll know. The emperor nodded, and began to pick up. The errands have been more difficult recently. You can let the prince go out to accept the torture, and let him know how good the family is. Because of the topic of bare children at home, the emperor could empathize with Lu Shangshu very much, so he generously forgave Lu Huan for truancy, and also thoughtfully gave Lu Shangshu a handwritten letter so that he could go to Confucius and ask for leave. Lu Shangshu left gratefully, then went to the East Palace to apologize to the prince, and asked Lu Huan to leave by the way. It was rare for the crown prince to have time to play with the little emperor's grandson in the East Palace. Hearing that there was not much disturbance, he responded. With so many companions in the Chongquen Museum, he can remember that, in addition to the confidants he selected, there are only Bai Shan, Bai Cheng, and Yin or the three of them. He didn't have deep feelings for Lu Huan, so he wouldn't feel uncomfortable when this companion left him, but he went to the western regions. The prince comforted Lu Shangshu by saying, it's good to go out and learn more. Lu Shangshu responded with a moved face, thanked the prince for his magnanimity, and said that if he did not grow up after returning from the western regions this time, he would be ashamed of the world, the emperor, the prince, and his parents. Then Lu Shangshu took advantage of the opportunity to ask for a long vacation for his grandson and prince. The prince readily agreed. So Lu Shangshu also got the prince's handwriting, he breathed a sigh of relief, and then quit the palace, and then took the wine jar taken out from home to find Confucius to sacrifice wine. The emperor and the prince didn't feel much about Lu Huan's truancy, but Kong Jiju was different. He frowned, and when he saw the wine on the table, he was about to kick him out. Lu Shangshu grabbed his hand and sighed, Zongda, what do you think this child should do? He can't read as well as him. Forget about the elder brother, the person who is about to reach the crown, but still has a childish temper, to be able to do such a thing as running away from home. If he's really a slut, I won't say anything. I'll let him be a bodyguard for the rest of my life. Even if he can't live a rich life, he won't worry about food and drink, and his connections are not bad, but he won't be with Zhaolu and the others. When we play together, I like to walk around with Bai Shanyan or a few others. What do you mean? Kong Jiju, who regarded Bai Shan and Yin or as proud students, was unhappy. What's wrong with walking around with Bai Shan Yin or behind? It's better than messing around with Zhaolu, right? He said, look at the Lu Yu, they are fooling around now, what good future can they have in the future? Lu Shangshu sighed, why don't I know? It's just that I would rather be a chicken's head than a phoenix's tail. Alas, it's too late to say anything now. He went to the western regions to study by himself, so the western regions are so good. Originally, I thought that after this year's Mid-Autumn Festival, I would let him ask for leave or leave the palace, and then go to Suzhou for a study tour, and it would be good to suppress his temperament. Who knows that he will not listen to the persuasion? Is it not because is Suzhou his father's place? I think he's doing a good job, Kong Jiju boasted. What's the difference between going to his father's place for a study tour and wandering around the capital? At this moment, he didn't think Lu Huan truancy was abhorrent, and waved his hand in disgust. Are you here to ask for leave for him? Okay, I understand, you leave your majesty and his royal highness's handwritten letter, you can go, I agree already. There are still many words Lu Shangshu who has not had time to say. Kong Jiju held down the wine jar and said, let's go. Lu Shangshu, who wanted to continue drinking and chatting with him, tried hard twice, but found that he could not continue the topic, so he could only stand up and leave, leaving him the handwritten letters of the emperor and the prince. Kong Jiju snorted coldly after he left, old fox. When the old fox Lu Shangshu returned home, Mrs. Lu was looking sad while staring at people to pack up. He saw that 2 cars were piled up, and there was a tendency to increase, so he stopped her and said, just pack some. Now, this is too much preparation, isn't it? See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2132. Mrs. Lu said, in the western regions, you need to prepare food and clothing along the way, and you don't know how long you will be there. You can't have less clothes all year round, especially when it's cold there. Okay, things like clothes can be bought with money, they won't get cold to him, just pack a few sets a season, but it's true to prepare more shoes and socks. If you don't have any ready-made ones at home, you can buy them outside. I can't buy something that I can make at home. There are also some medicinal herbs and pills. You forgot who is the chief official in the western regions this time? With Imperial Physician Zhou here, are you afraid that there is no such thing? Lu Shangshu said, just prepare some clothes, shoes, and socks, as long as you have money, and leave the rest to me. At Lu Shangshu's insistence, there were no more than 2 carriages going out the next day. One was the carriage arranged for Lu Huan, and the other was specially designed to pull their luggage. Lu Huan alone accounted for most of them. Scholar Lu Shang was afraid that she would add more things, so he ordered 2 stewards and 3 guards early in the morning, and asked them to go after Lu Huan immediately. Among them, only 1 steward and 3 guards followed Lu Huan to the western regions, and the rest would come back after finding someone. Lu Shangshu waited to see if he could bring back his few words. The Lu family's horses and carriages drove in a hurry, and they ate dry food at noon, and finally caught up with Bai Shan and others who were resting in a small town at noon the next day. It is not difficult to find them, just ask the stalls on the road if there is a group of officials from the court passing by. It's been the 3rd day, and Lu Huan is both anticipating and apprehensive when he sees that his family has never been found. I hoped that the grandparents would really forget him, and the more time passed, the more annoyed the grandparents would be when they found him. He already thought in his heart that the family would probably arrest him and bring him back, so when he saw the uncle, the housekeeper, finally appearing, he burst into tears. Man Bao was stunned for a moment, a little at a loss. "You, don't cry." Bai Erlang also quickly comforted, "It's not necessarily just here to catch you." Bai Shan glanced at a blue cloth carriage brought by the guards of the Lu family, and the luggage behind the blue cloth carriage. He couldn't help laughing, shook his head and let Lu Huan wipe away his tears. He greeted him and greeted the steward of the Lu family. Yin he also saw the luggage in the car, and said to Lu Huan, "Don't cry, your grandfather came to bring you things." Lu Huan let out an ah and glanced at him with red eyes before looking out the door. Lu Guanqi and Bai Shan met with courtesy, and took out the letter from their grandfather to Bai Shan and presented it to him. "This is the letter from our grandfather to Mr. Bai and Lord Zhou." Bai Shan took it, saw his and Man Bao's names written on the envelope, smiled and nodded, and asked him to greet Lu Huan. Lu Huan glanced at the large and small boxes in the car, and half-believingly, he leaned aside with Steward Lu and whispered. After a long time, he came back with a letter in his hands, both happy and worried, and said to his friends, "My grandfather agreed. I'm going to the western regions." Bai Erlang asked, "But what?" Lu Huan lowered his shoulders and said, "But my grandfather gave me a lot of homework." Bai Erlang asked curiously, "Where is your schoolwork?" Lu Huan looked at Mr. Zhuang next to him. Everyone looked over, and sure enough, Steward Lu was already holding a letter and bending over to talk to Mr. Zhuang. In addition to a letter, the Lu family also sent a generous gift to Mr. Zhuang, including 2 gold ingots. It is said that Mr. Zhuang instructed Lu Huan's beam repair. The 2 pedestrians at Honglu Temple on the side looked at Mr. Zhuang with envy. As for the 20 taels of gold ingots, Mr. Zhuang's annual salary is not that high. Does being a gentleman make so much money? Mr. Zhuang did not expect that he would not only be able to take 3 disciples on a study tour, but also earn extra money. After a pause, he happily accepted the gold, and Steward Lu said that he would also arrange for Lu Huan when assigning homework to his disciples, and would teach him like a disciple. All Lu Shangshu wanted was the sentence. He knew that the child said that he was going out to experience the study tour, but if no one was watching, the study tour would likely turn into a play. As for the others, Bai Shan did not talk about them. He was still young, even Zhou Man. He was still childish and playful, and only Mr. Zhuang could still remember their schoolwork. Mr. Zhuang was a lecturer for the Chongguan Museum. He was praised by the emperor several times because he taught the prince. He also taught 3 outstanding disciples, Bai Shan's Human and Bai Cheng. He took his grandson to study. Lu Shangshu put 100 heart. Bai Shan poked Lu Huan quietly, and said in a low voice, "Write an apologetic letter to your grandfather and grandmother soon." Lu Huan was tangled, how to write this? Not to mention Bai Shan, even Bai Erlang gave him a contemptuous look, "You can't even write this." The 3 of them taught him with experience. Just imagine how you would plead guilty if you were caught and pressed on the ground, and then how to write it. Lu Huan. Yin he couldn't help but pursed his lips and smiled, turned his head and said to Chang Shao, "Go get the pen and paper, most of your housekeepers are in a hurry to return to their lives, so quickly write it down and send it back to your grandfather." Lu Huan couldn't help having a headache, but it was much better than he expected, so he still held the pen and frowned and thought. Zhou Liru saw that he couldn't hold back a word for a long time, and said, "Just cry, and then say how much you want to go on a study tour with your friends. Does this work?" "If your grandparents love you, it will work," she said. "Every time my aunt does something bad, she would cry with my grandparents like this, and then my grandparents would be so distressed." Man Bao, nonsense, how can I be so treacherous? Bai Shan's and Lu Huan said, "Just write it like that." Bai Erlang urged, "Hurry up, We have to hurry after we have eaten, and we will rush to the next post in the evening to rest. Lu Huan could only bite the bullet and pick up the pen to write down, and it took almost half an hour to get a letter out. Then give the letter to Steward Fang and ask him to take it home to his grandfather. Lu Huan also had his own carriage, and the team added 4 more people and 2 cars, and it looked a little longer. Nai Changkan, who was in charge of escorting them and joined the army, sighed at that, and then went to the Yin family's generals to rearrange the order of the carriages and horses. Because of Yin He's participation, the person who was originally responsible for escorting them was a member of the Honglu temple who joined the army from the Kaipan Caoshi. Yin Li gave him a little relationship, and Nai Changkan, who had some relationship with the Yin family, was in charge of the matter. He is the 7th grade. But in fact, it was the family generals who followed Yin Or together, and they were all family generals of Yin Li. Followed him on the battlefield, killed the enemy, and even led soldiers. Manbao didn't care about these matters, but Nai Kenjun reported to her after making adjustments. After all, she was the chief officer. Manbao nodded, indicating that he knew about it. She never interferes with things she doesn't understand. See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2133. Bai Shan put down the curtain and said to Manbao, who was yawning, "Now you can relax and sleep for a while, and I'll call you when you get there." Manbao pulled out a soft pillow from the belly of the car, "Then I'll squint for a while, remember to call me." Bai Shan nodded, watching her sleeping on the wooden table with the soft pillow, the carriage swaying. It might be uncomfortable at first, but when the speed is not fast, it doesn't feel bumpy. On the contrary, it is more suitable for sleeping. Manbao quickly fell asleep. By the time she was woken up, they had already arrived at the inn. The inn is alone in a forest, next to the official road, and the nearby wasteland has traces of carriages and horses, and the carriages can be parked when they are leveled out. Even the horse shed is outside the house, so I randomly circled a place, surrounded it with wood, and sparsely covered it with some thatch. It was considered a horse shed. Manbao and the others walked this road when they rushed to Xiaohu before, but because they were marching fast, they missed the station except when they needed to change horses, so they had no impression of the station at all. This was the most dilapidated inn she had ever seen. Not only was the stables very perfunctory, but even the houses of the inn were a little dilapidated. Bai Shan stared at the roof for a long time, afraid that it would fly away when the wind blows at night. Others just looked at it, but Lu Huan couldn't help but exclaimed, "This station is too broken, isn't it?" The courier came out of the inn to welcome him. Hearing that, he glanced at Lu Huan, then looked away, and after swept over everyone, he greeted Mr. Zhuang, "Is this lord going to stay here?" Mr. Zhuang nodded, introduced himself first, and then introduced Manbao, "This is the chief official of our trip, Mr. Zhou, the editor of Chongguan Museum." Yi Chen was stunned, reacted, and immediately stepped forward to greet him. It turned out to be Imperial Physician Zhou. "Imperial Physician Zhou, please come in." Obviously, as the only female official today, Yu Chen also knew her. Manbao nodded and asked everyone to put the carriages and horses away, and then entered with the Yu Chen. "Is there enough room to live in? If there is not enough, everyone will squeeze." The postmaster tried his best to squeeze out a smile and said, "The small station is a bit shabby, and there are not many good rooms, so the adults need to squeeze in, and 2 people can live in 1 room." He wiped the sweat from his forehead. "There are only 5 rooms on the 2nd floor, all of them are upper rooms, so." Manbao said, "Enough. Mr. Zhuang and Nai can live in 1 room, 2 pedestrians in 1 room, Manbao and Zhou Liru in 1 room, Yin He and Lu Huan in 1 room, and Bai Shan and Bai Yi are in one room. But fortunately, no other officials in the same way have passed by now, otherwise Bai Shan and the others would definitely not have been in a room, and they would have to choose a room on the basis of quality. Bai Shan looked up and down. The tables and chairs inside were all missing arms and legs. He couldn't help but wonder, how far is it from here to the town? The postman said quickly, going down from here is Yi's County, and it's about 40 miles away. Isn't there a town on the way? The postmaster shook his head, forget about the town, there isn't even a big village. If adults want to live in the village, they have to be far away from the official road. He smiled and said, however, very few people stop here at Xiaguan. Most of them stop in the villages in front of them for the night, and then catch up with the day's journey to Yi's County the next day. Bai Shan knew that they were staying at the rush station and missed the news. He glanced at Man Bao, smiled and said, it can be seen that this is fate. It's fate, it's fate. Yuchen was afraid of offending them, so he repeatedly bowed in response, and then let them rest first, and he immediately went to prepare hot water and hot rice. God is pitiful to see, he may not have a single guest in 10 days and a half months, so the stove is only the food and hot water that he eats and drinks. Suddenly so many people came. Yuchen was a little flustered. Bai Shan guessed that he was sweating on his forehead in a cold day, turned his head and said to Daji, you can ask someone to help, and do what you can do yourself. Daji responded, turned around and let the guards put the carriage in one place to take care of it, and the horses and mules also prepared their own food and grass to feed. There were not many people in the inn. There was one courier and 2 helpers, and the courier gave the quota to his mother-in-law and son very favorably. One is working in the kitchen, the other is supporting. Although Xiapo station has no customers and almost no extra income, there is still a monthly salary from the imperial court, which is not much, but it also makes their lives better than ordinary people. Because there was no preparation, Yuchen not only called his wife and son over, but also brought his daughter and younger son to work, and asked them to quickly boil water to cook. Then he started squatting and distressed, what are so many people eating? His mother-in-law hesitated for a moment and then said, how about you take out all the bacon left over from the Chinese New Year at home and make it? They are all adults, so they can't be neglected. The postman nodded, that's not enough, let's kill the chickens in our house. His mother-in-law was a little unhappy, I'm still young, it's just over 2 pounds in total, and there's not much meat left after the hair is removed. She still wants to raise eggs. The postman said in a low voice, what do you know, this time it's a high-ranking official. This imperial doctor of Zhou is famous. She was the one who treated the disease that caused such a big outbreak during the New Year. Such a high-ranking official came here. She didn't have 2 meat dishes, and when she turned around, she got angry and told her boss, can I still be a postmaster? Then his mother-in-law walked to the broken shed behind the inn with a sad face, where their chickens were raised. Man Bao and the others put their luggage in the house, and Keek told her that there was an unlisted plant behind the inn, so Man Bao carried his small medicine hoe to the back. Bai Shan followed her and said, if you want to dig flowers and plants, we can go into the woods to find them later. Now is the time when the plants and trees are recovering, maybe we can find mushrooms. Man Bao, it's not raining, how can there be mushrooms? When the 2 arrived at the back, they saw a particularly beautiful plant on the edge of the vegetable field. They said that it was beautiful because it had green leaves and luxuriant branches. Also well cared for. Because of this, the 2 did not make a move for a while. This thing doesn't look wild at first glance. If they want to dig it, they must ask the owner, right? I was squatting and researching when I heard footsteps, and when I turned around, I saw a woman approaching aggressively with a knife. Man Bao and Bai Shan invariably shrank their necks, first moved back subconsciously, and moved away from the plant to show that they had no bad thoughts about it. As a result, The woman who approached aggressively did not see the two squatting on the edge of the vegetable field, but went straight to the dilapidated shed next to her. As soon as she stepped in, the two of them soon heard the sound of chickens screaming and flapping their wings. The two of them breathed a sigh of relief together, looked at each other and couldn't help but burst into laughter, then got up and walked over to talk to the woman. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2134. When she walked to the edge of the broken shed, she happened to see her carrying a chicken. Her brows were full of anger, and she looked sad. Manbao glanced at the chicken and couldn't help but say, "Sister-in-law, was this chicken killed at such a young age?" The woman was startled by the sudden sound, and the grouse flew away with a hand. Manbao was also a little frightened when he saw her holding the knife. She has not watched people kill chickens since she was a child, but no one carried a knife like this when killing chickens. The woman reacted, and hurriedly lowered the blade of the knife, squeezed out a smile and said, "It's your lord, you're scaring your lord, aren't you?" Manbao shook his head, looked at the chickens in the shed, and found that the chickens inside were not big, at least not yet ready to eat. However, such a tender chicken must be delicious when fried, but now there are not many dishes, you can put a little cornel to taste. Bai Shan turned his head to look at her and asked the woman with a smile, "Are you preparing dinner for us?" The woman replied respectfully, "Yes, the inn is broken, and the adults are wronged." Bai Shan shook his head and said with a smile, "This chicken looks small. It's a pity to kill it at this time. We brought some ingredients with us. I'll ask them to bring you some. You don't have to kill the chicken." Manbao returned to his senses, nodded again and said to her, "This kind of chicken has to be raised for 3 or 4 months before laying eggs. It's a pity to kill it at this time." "Who said it wasn't?" The woman nodded again and happily came out of the shed. "Isn't it true, I also said that I wouldn't kill it, but my family said it was not good enough to neglect the adults." She embarrassedly said, "Our inn is remote, and there are few adults left in a year, so there are not many things to prepare." Bai Shan expressed his understanding and asked curiously, "How far is the nearest village to your station?" "It's not far, go down that path, and it's about 10 miles away. It's a bigger village, and there are 3 or 4 small villages nearby, so there's a small market, and the adults who stop by occasionally come here. In the morning, we'll go there and buy some fresh meat." Bai Shan understood, everyone who settled here is leaving at noon. "Yes, the journey is faster, and we stop here at noon." Manbao asked, "Do you buy the vegetables, or do you grow them at home?" "Oh, there are not many vegetables for eating. Look, sir, we planted this vegetable garden. There are not many adults here, so we have enough to eat." Manbao pointed at the plant and asked, "I know all the other vegetables, but I don't know that clump of grass. Is it also a vegetable?" The woman glanced at it and said, "It's mountain pepper." Manbao glanced at Keek's information, which was blank. He only said that he found an unlisted plant, but he didn't detect what it was called. Obviously, they didn't even have basic data on this thing, so they couldn't recognize it. Manbao said, "I've seen mountain peppercorns that don't grow like this." She has collected peppers and mountain peppers. She never forgets the plants she has seen, or at least she will not fail to recognize them when they meet again. The woman insisted, "This is mountain pepper, and the root can still be sold in drugstores as medicine." When Manbao heard this, he was refreshed and said, "Then do you have roots? Let me see." "No, my clump was planted last year, and I'm thinking of selling it to a drugstore for money when it grows up," she said. "The drugstore person said that it will take at least 2 years for it to grow." Row. Manbao wanted to dig even more. "Can I dig one?" "Oh, this is one of my plants. Don't look at how big it grows, but it's actually just one. If you don't believe me, look at it." Man Bao curiously leaned in to look at it and determined that there was indeed only one root at the bottom. He was a little disappointed. Can this thing be cut? That can't be, it can only be planted with seeds. Do you still have seeds? No, the woman said, my mother-in-law gave a handful of seeds, and in the end only this one grew. The craftsmanship of this planting is really ordinary. Man Bao started to touch his wallet. Bai Shan had already taken off the wallet, and gave her a bunch of money from it. We haven't seen this thing before, I think it's very strange, I want to study it, we'll buy it with you, how about coming down? The woman looked at the money in his hand and was speechless. After a while, she said, this is not good. But she took the money in her hand, and with a bright smile on her face, she said, you dig, whatever you want, you can dig if there is anything you like in this vegetable garden. Man Bao couldn't help laughing and said, no, we'll just dig this one. The woman glanced at the small hoe in their hands, turned around and said, this is too small to dig, you wait, I will find a big hoe for you, and let the boy from my family come and dig for you. After he finished speaking, he took the money and ran away with the knife. Man Bao naturally wouldn't wait for her. Even though her hoe was small, it was deliberately smashed. It was strong and sharp. There was nothing bad except that she needed a few more hoes. Bai Shan took the hoe in her hand and started hoeing. In order not to hurt the roots, the place he dug was a little big. The woman didn't come, and the last one came, Yi Chang. He was carrying a hoe and a bunch of money in his hand. His forehead was sweating when he ran over. Sir, this is a wild tree, how can I ask you for it? Money. Man Bao smiled and pushed back and said, this is what you guys use to make money. Selling it to me is the same as selling it to a pharmacy. How can you not make money? Yi Chang could see that she was not being polite, so he paused and said, that's not enough, my wife is ignorant, this thing is just planted, and a pound of rhizomes only costs 70 to 80 yuan, so I have to plant it too. It takes 3 or 4 years to dig. How many kilograms does one plant weigh? You are giving too much money. Man Bao said, but this thing is in your hands, but eggs lay eggs. I heard that this is the seed that is planted. When the seeds mature in 1 year, you can plant one next year, and in 2 years, you will be able to reap a lot rhizome. Just like how their family grows yam and privet, there were only a few plants at the beginning, but year after year, many people in the village now grow privet on the mountain and make a lot of money. Yi Chang couldn't help laughing and crying, Your Excellency is too good at joking, this medicine doesn't grow out of it just by talking about it, so I have to take care of it. My mother-in-law brought back a handful of seeds from her mother's house, and she sowed several seeds. After a few months, only this one survived, and it would be good if she could plant this one well. Bai Shan said, just take it for you. I don't know if your family still has seeds. If so, we would like to buy some. Yi Cheng immediately said, yes, I will ask my boy to get it in a while, I dare not say to buy it, I will pack a bag for you later. Finally, I don't want to give up money anymore. Both sides breathed a sigh of relief. Bai Shan took the big hoe in his hand, thanked him for his kindness to help, and asked him to go to the front to get the ingredients from Daji, and they could dig it themselves. After a while, this thing has to be dug up to provide for my father-in-law, and it is inconvenient for him to be here. See you at 9.